Hey, we're live. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Canna-heads ND, Season 2, Episode 10. Your once-a-week podcast for the latest in cannabis, local, and national news every Sunday at 7:30 p.m., and that is the time right now. We are dropping frames. BRB. Okay, better now. Everything's much better now.
Did Phil save the day?
This is a very, very professional production here, okay? We are extremely professional and just the highest end production value. Anyway, let's just start again. Welcome back to Canna-heads ND, Season 2, Episode 10, 20, I don't know. Your once-a-week podcast for the latest in cannabis, local, and national news every Sunday at around 7:30 p.m. We made it on time, I promise. And typically we go for about an hour to an hour and a half. My name is Phil.
I'm Anthony.
And yeah, welcome back to the show, everybody. We had that election stream, so if you guys dropped by for that, thank you guys. It went really well, surprisingly. And if you guys want to see what the election stream looked like, it's still up. I'm going to be clipping it down, but till I do, I will be leaving it up. So yeah, if you like newsy type shows, listen to KFF Radio Free Fargo on 95.9 Thursdays from 4 to 5 p.m. with Greg Wilson. It's basically kind of like the newsy type things. But he does kind of like the topical ones, and I've been doing deep dives, but really it's just been kind of topical ones, just different topics. So the things that you hear on this one is usually a little bit different than what you would hear on Greg's show. So it's definitely not like the same thing, is what I'm trying to make it as. So yeah. Yeah, my kratom's almost done. Okay, anyway, yeah, so, just back thing here, almost everything that could have possibly gone wrong went wrong about an hour before. So I'm a little bit scatterbrained.
Doug, aggressive.
But, yeah, let's just kind of jump through the different states that legalized. One huge thing that is amazing, every single state that had cannabis on the ballot legalized, and it went through, and everybody won. So that is really cool. So we can just kind of run through everyone. Arizona did 21 or older. 6 plants or less, as long as it's in a lockable container away from public view. There was a 16% tax that would be divided between community college districts, municipal police, sheriff, and the fire department's fire districts, and the state highways user revenue fund, as well as the new justice reinvestment fund. They also had it was called Proposition 207. It would allow anyone convicted of marijuana-related crimes related to possession, consumption, cultivation, and transportation to be able to petition the courts to get it taken off, an expungement. And that would be starting July 12th, 2021. And it also provided local governments the power to ban facilities and testing centers and give local control over elements of regulation, zoning, and licensing. But I don't think we're going to be seeing that too much, considering the fact that I think they're going to realize how much money is in this. And we'll kind of talk a little bit more about cannabis and money and all that stuff, and kind of what my view is of the results of the election, and how that's really, really good. But the fact that there's a lot of money, I don't think we're going to be seeing any cities ban. And if they do, it would be very, very quick. I don't think it would last long. And if it does, who's going to tell on you? That's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
It's not really, like, maybe you might not be able to buy it in your city, but, like, just drive a city over. It's Arizona. Mississippi, they did a medical. There was 2 initiatives. Initiative 65 is the one that passed. 65A is the one that died. And it was because it had a very, very... It was weird. So 65 actually had a list of specified conditions, whereas 65A basically just said that it would be for terminally ill patients. So there wasn't a list. Voters didn't exactly know what terminally ill would mean. It could mean AIDS, cancer, anything like that, but they weren't like, it didn't say, only for cancer patients or not, but they didn't really give that list, so people weren't like sure. And it was weird because that was the legislative version, 65A, and 65 was the citizen version. And holy crap, you were loud.
Me?
Yeah, holy.
It's because I had to mute for a second.
Okay, hopefully it just drops down in a
You
second.
might have to deal with this a little bit. The whole trying to die thing. I might have to cough.
Yeah, that too. But yeah, so the 65 allowed individuals to possess up to 2.5 ounces at one time and tax marijuana sales at the current state tax rate of 7%. 65A restricted it to terminally ill patients. That didn't go through. But it did have one good thing, and I think it was kind of like a super underhanded way of trying to kill Initiative 65, and it put in a requirement for pharmaceutical grade products, which I mean is pretty much what that is, but it basically, the way that they put it in there was like, well, if 65 passes, then anybody is going to be able to sell it, and that's not how that works. The marijuana industry, or cannabis industry, whatever you want to call it, is a very, very professional-based industry. There's not really, like, guys... It's not like, what's that one movie? Put that shit in my hand.
Oh, well, give me a second. Clerks.
Clerks. So it's not like Clerks style. It's pretty professional. I don't know if anybody's been to a dispensary or anything like that, but it's not like what people see from movies from the 80s, is what I'm trying to say. So pharmaceutical grade is usually required in these types of situations. But yeah, so that basically passed with 20 qualifying conditions. Those are the very common conditions that almost every single state that has qualifying conditions had it. It has this one too, so it's nothing super crazy, but at the same time, it's good that there was an outlined set of conditions, just because that would help in protecting people's rights if they get denied. Montana was 2 measures. The first one was a constitutional amendment, and it would allow the legislator or a citizen initiative to establish a minimum legal age for the possession, use, and purchase of marijuana. Kind of how the wording is weird, similar to the regulation of alcohol in the state constitution. So it's pretty much saying that if the minimum age for alcohol ever changes, it will also have the minimum age for marijuana. But like, I don't think any state's planning on making or raising or lowering the legal drinking age, but 190 had the actual, and that's a statutory in our case, had that kind of wording that basically set what the constitutional one made it's legal now, and the initiative, or the statutory one.
Statutory.
Yeah, the statutory one is the one that set the actual framework. And that was basically the possession and use of marijuana for adults over the age of 21. It imposed this is insane, but a 20% tax on sales, requiring the Department of Revenue to develop rules to regulate the businesses, and it would allow for resentencing or expungement of marijuana-related crimes. So people who are in jail right now can actually benefit from this. Well, once the law actually goes into effect, so 2021. So it would allow those, and then it would also allow the expungement, and that would be, hopefully they get that going right away, but I'm sure that there's some sort of legislative thing that they have to do. New Jersey, which by the way was the first state in the, what would you call it? The west side of the country. I don't know.
East side.
Oh yeah, east. Okay, so side tangent here. Am I the only one that still does the never eat soggy worms whenever I have to do the compass? Like, in my head, I'm like, never eat soggy worms. That's how I learned, northeast, southwest. And I still remember that, and that's literally how I do it when it's, like, on the fly type of thing. But
The only thing that really comes to mind that's, like, something I picked up is sun rises in the east and sets in the west.
Oh, that's a more normal way of saying that. Mine's from like elementary school. Like, I think it was elementary. Either way, it was like young kid Phil. That's literally how they like made us remember never eat soggy worms, and it's like this way. I don't know. Anyway, the amendment to the Constitution that legalizes the recreational use of marijuana, also known as cannabis. I don't know why that was in marijuana moment, but for persons age 21 or older, and legalizes the cultivation, processing, and sale of retail marijuana. The constitutional amendment would take effect January 1st, 2021. So they pretty much, they knew that there was possibly a South Dakota type of situation, which we'll get into. But they were the first state, this is the one, Mid-Atlantic. I don't know what that means exactly, but on the east side of the country, mid-east side, to legalize marijuana. They already had this, but it would kind of expand their powers to recreational. A 5-member cannabis regulatory commission to oversee the medical marijuana program is now going to be doing the recreational as well, and they would be responsible for regulating the cultivation, processing, and sale of recreational marijuana. They also will have a sales tax of 6.625%. It would prohibit the state from making their own, but it would allow the city to put an extra 2% tax. So the city can also kind of get in on it type of thing, which is kind of the best of both worlds there. And the ballot measure...
You really complain for the freedom.
Right. Honestly, 2%.
That sounds really fucked up because it's like freedom should just be free.
Well, Montana's 20%.
Yeah. It's like luxury tax on something that shouldn't have been a thing in the first place.
Wasn't Illinois like 16 or 19%? I'm gonna drink this really quick.
Yeah, I'll look it up real quick. It's apparently taxed as TAZ.
Hmm?
Oh,
in your head? Yeah, like I think Illinois had either 16 or 18%, which is surprising because when they first legalized, it broke records, so people were willing to pay it.
Yeah. Michigan is 16%.
Oh, what's Illinois'?
It gives me multiple numbers. The state and local tax burden is 26.25.
Yeah.
36.25, 41.25. What's crazy though is Seattle really takes the cake. 47.1.
Jesus. I mean, it's worth it.
To an extent. I think they ruin, like when you have sales tax like that, or any type of fee or whatever, at some point, like, there's a threshold between, like, willing to pay for the freedom and you're paying for the convenience, really, because you can go buy really from anywhere, and the law itself protects you from, getting in trouble for it. So really, I could go still buy from a friend or something like that, and I paid normal human prices, and they still can't arrest me for it. So you're really just paying a luxury tax, really, just to be able to buy it in the first place without going through the hassle.
Yeah, but buying it from like a different person, that's technically against the tax code, but like,
that's what I'm saying.
Who's gonna check?
Yeah, and like prove it. But on the other hand, and I don't want to say that as an encouragement, when you buy from a dispensary, you're getting quality product. You're getting things that are vetted and lab certified. Whereas if I go buy something for my friend, he probably got it from a dude who got it from a dude in a bigger quantity and go on up the chain.
Yeah. But it might actually raise the price because it's got to come from somewhere. And I'm sure that, like, it would be cheaper to buy it from a dispensary in the state rather than having to pay somebody to drive it from another state type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it might raise the price locally, just on street price. But
that's what I'm saying. Is like when you have burdens, like when it becomes an actual burden, because you call it a tax burden anyway, but when it actually becomes burdensome, then you really just you create an environment for the black market.
Yeah.
Like you make it more alluring to just buy illegally than do it properly.
Yeah.
And people are willing to sacrifice the safety of being able to have certified product compared to what they get, because everybody's trying to save a buck,
Yeah. It also, it didn't have specifics, but it did set possession, or it said that, so the legislator or the Cannabis Regulatory Commission would be the ones that set the possession limits, the home grow rules, and the retail regulations. Wait, what? The legislator and CRC, so the Cannabis Regulatory Commission, would be the ones that set those rules, so kind of what I said. But they would need to also enact additional laws behind it. So, yeah. This measure as well was a legislative ballot measure as well. So this actually was very, very well. Like, I think even the governor was like, "We need to do this. Like, you guys have to vote yes." But yeah, they're the ones who kind of set this all out, legislator and everything like that. So that is probably the best thing that had the best chances of passing. And South Dakota.
South fucking Dakota.
So South Dakota. So they had an amendment called Amendment. Oh, okay, that's not the one I wanted to touch. There we go. There we go. All right, cool. So Amendment A would legalize the recreational use of marijuana to individuals 21 years or older. Individuals would be allowed to possess or distribute up to 1 ounce. It would require South Dakota state legislature to pass laws providing for a program for medical marijuana and the sale of hemp by the year 2022, April 1st, 2022, not just April. Individuals who live in a jurisdiction with no licensed retail stores would be able to grow up to 3 marijuana plants in a private residence in a locked space. Though a residence can't have more than 6 at a time. They would be taxed at 15%, and the tax revenue would be used by the Revenue Department to cover costs associated with implementing the amendment. So there is incentive to implement this. And as you can see, apparently not enough. And a local government can ban cultivators and testing facilities and wholesalers or retail stores from operating in their limits. But it wouldn't it wouldn't prohibit the transportation. So like, they can't like pull somebody over in a semi, for instance, driving some fucking hemp to another state that's not even in the fucking end of the place, and pull them over, throw them in jail, and say that they were like selling hemp or something, even when it was legal. I don't know
But
where
I
I would be getting.
digress.
Huh?
Said, but I digress.
Right. And then there was also a Measure 26, would establish the medical marijuana program from debilitating medical conditions, which are actually listed out, that would be certified by a physician. Patients would be allowed to possess a maximum of 3 ounces, and the amount of products a person may possess would be set by the Department of Health, and you would also be able to register to cultivate at home, and you could grow 3 plants at minimum, or another amount as prescribed by a physician. So, why is this going on? Well, Kristi Noem, who is a Republican, we're not gonna go into the it is not a partisan issue, but I just want to point that out. People keep making it a partisan issue, and that is the reason why I'm pointing it out. She basically told a news agency that we need to be finding ways to strengthen our families, and I think we're taking a step backward in that effort. I was personally opposed to these measures and firmly believe that they're the wrong choice for South Dakota's communities. Okay. House Speaker Stephen Havgard, I don't know, not gonna be able to say his last name, also an R. You really need to figure out if a constitutional amendment is sufficient to itself to clarify some of these issues. I suspect we are going to have some challenges to that. It is so long. Even our legislator, even in our legislature, when we pass a bill that's a paragraph, we spend a lot of time arguing about the wording, and then we might come back and in following years and address that. This or that and address that. This, though, is a constitutional amendment, so it's a little bit more difficult to do that. I mean, the measure did kind of give you guys the power to actually set laws regarding that, working through the legislature to, let me see, the amendment would require the South Dakota state legislature to pass laws providing for a program of medical marijuana and the sale of hemp by April 1st, 2022. So you have like 2 years to do that. So basically, he's basically saying that it's a challenge to try to figure out how to weave this together with current law, both state and federal. So there are a lot of things that it addresses. The formal passage of the legislation will become law on July 1st, 2021, and the Department of Revenue will be charged with developing licensing regulations of April 1st, 2022. And just to kind of point this out, the first legislative session in South Dakota would be the second Tuesday of January, which I looked is January 12th, and they have 40 days. Most of the time, it's based on like if it's an even or an odd year, but I think what I had read, I didn't write this down in my notes here, but I think it was like 37 days is usually how long they take, no matter what. So like even if it's if it's an odd or an even, so you've got 40 days, and January 12th is when it will start. So you've got a little while to actually be able to sit down and do your job. That might be a thing you might want to do every once in a while. I'm not really sure why throwing it out that you should, or that this is going to be a lot more challenging and everything like that. The measure stated that you would have to do this, so you should have been prepared. And yeah, so when it comes to being opposed to these measures and firmly believe that they're wrong choice for South Dakota's communities, maybe voting for you was the wrong choice for South Dakota communities then, because that's kind of what happened. So,
Again, we talk about it all the time. I am a firm believer in the will of the people. You know, the majority speaking on something is not without value. It's not without merit, you know? So
yeah,
to say that the state as a whole made that decision, you're insinuating that the people in which you serve were incompetent in their choice.
yeah, exactly. Like, that's pretty much. I should really stop clapping because I know it peaks me out. But yeah, that pretty much is what that's saying. Um, that it's about you and it's only about you and that's all you care about. And if it doesn't benefit you in one way or another, then it's wrong. And that's not how that works in any way whatsoever. And yeah, so I think she's, let's see, what is she up for re-election anytime soon? Let's see here. Second term or what? Yep.
And I bet she won't be for long. She keeps this shit up. Because if the
That's,
majority voted for this and she's protesting it, she's not going to last long.
yeah. Um. Oh, can we remember that she is the one who released a new meth awareness campaign
Yep.
named Meth We're on It?
I really hope nobody forgets that. Come around to a re-election, I want everybody to scream that shit from the rooftops that happened.
And let's also not or let's also mention the fact that when they were talking when Donald Trump passed a executive order, or maybe it was something to do. I think it was something to do with extra money for unemployment. She said, "Nah, South Dakota doesn't need it because like yo, we got it figured out, and then we're gonna also have Sturgis in South Dakota as well."
Hmm.
About a couple days after I said we don't need it, and yeah, that's how we're gonna fuck over North Dakota because I mean people from around the state are usually the ones that went there and then they leave there and then
Yep.
they come somewhere else and that's how that works. Um, so yeah, I remember she was the one who was saying that. She also was like, "Hey, hydroxychloroquine being that magic bullet that everybody has been using. All right, cool. Let's just try it on everybody in South Dakota." Was that also good for South Dakota's communities? Um, honestly, the entire like breakdown here. Abolishing a permit carry, that's fine, whatever. At least in my opinion. She was the first woman in South Dakota history to hold her office, which is actually pretty cool, honestly. Um,
But what did she do with it?
right? Yeah, kind of way to shit on it. Um, yeah, meth, we're on it. That's all I gotta say about that. There's really not much to say there. Um, she was also on June 20th at the Republican State Convention. No one was chosen to be one of South Dakota's 3 Republican presidential electors, along with the Lieutenant Governor. Wow, and Attorney General. Jesus Christ. Yeah, we'll be also talking about those as well. This is going to be a very interesting show. This is kind of all going back together. 2018, that was when she went into office. 2016. That's congressional district, though. Okay, so she's just kind of in politics her like entire life, I suppose. But yeah, like I don't know if you decide to run for re-election, have fun trying to explain why somebody voting for something that you might not be all for is confusing. I'm pretty sure there was a quote in here where they were saying people were confused or something like that. Um, she also, well, we can talk a little bit more about that later. I'm trying to see where it says, because I remember reading it. It was like, maybe it was the wrong choice. Yeah, the state's government says that it was the wrong choice. I thought it was confused. Confused voters.
Mm-hmm.
I could have sworn she said confused voters. Let me see. Was that what she said? Um, urges voters to think about the real-life consequences. I mean, I can understand, her. It's not her like value or whatever, so she's gonna say vote no. That's fine, type of deal. But like after it passes, to just be like, yo, y'all are wrong. We ain't doing this. Fuck off. Like
That's definitely a you done fucked up moment.
yeah, like that's kind of
What would
career
make you
suicide.
think that that is a thing? Like, what could possibly go through your head to say, as the fucking highest, like the person in the highest office of the state, the will of the people doesn't mean jack shit compared to my opinion.
Well, this is what I was going to mention. She previously vetoed a hemp bill, um, and was among the opponents to both the reform proposals. And she released a video last month where she urged constituents to reject the reform initiative, stating that it is not good for our kids and won't improve our communities. Um, you know what does, you know, improve communities? Not arresting people in masses because they have a fucking plant?
Yep.
Or how about moving it out of, like, underground and putting it up above ground? Maybe it would be also good for kids because it's a lot harder. Well, it would be a little bit harder. I'm not 100% sure, like, all the statistics about it, but it would be a lot harder because they don't, like, it will be a lot less people of, I know a guy. It would be a lot more of, I'm going to a store. So, um, yeah, it is actually good for our kids. I'm not saying kids need to smoke. I'm just saying it would actually limit access to kids. I don't know the specific number, but I do know that that is an actual thing. So yeah, and it would also improve your communities because less crowded jails. I mean, maybe it's because you don't think COVID is a thing in your life, but or in your state. But I can very much tell you that it is. I think South Dakota. What is South Dakota's COVID number? Um, COVID
Well, I know for
Act.
the last 2 days we've had 3 deaths in our county in a row.
We've passed the 1,000 mark on ours. Oh yeah, they're at active or imminent outbreak. They're let's see. Okay, daily new cases 128.9 per 100. Let's see what was their number yesterday or today. Give me a number. Um, ICU headroom used 100%. uh, tracers hired 6%. Um, this is their thing. COVID Act now is a little bit it's not biased, I wouldn't say, but their reporting is kind of a little bit alarmist, I would say, but um yeah, this is their um track record, and if we want to know what North Dakota's is, I just remember COVID Act now, and that's the reason why I went there. Um this is what ours looks like. So, it's about as bad as North Dakota, which is about as bad as it gets. um, but yeah, so that's kind of her view on things. But yeah, so the Senate Minority Leader Troy Heinert, Democrat, said that South Dakota has a roadmap of other states and how they did it, and we can either choose to look at them and learn from them and see what works and make a plan that fits South Dakota, or we can just negate that the will of the people and say no, we aren't going to do this. And I would think that that is a huge mistake. I would agree with you. Let's just say I don't think that there is any kind of or any kind of way you can put it other than that would be a mistake. But yeah. So that's kind of what that sits at. Um, this was new. I just saw this one. Are they just all like saying fuck it? Is it just a fuck it moment? Um, this is from 3 days ago, by the way, but I just found it. Um, asking about the motivation behind his proposed bill. Oh, it's a proposed bill, so he didn't. Uh, but after 57% of the voters cast ballots in favor of legalization, the only branch of government in the state dumb enough to overturn citizens' initiatives is the state Supreme Court, which has done it repeatedly. Oh, okay, so he thinks it's a challenge. South Dakota, take some notes, I guess. If that's how you're gonna do it, then fuck it. Just go with it, I guess. Go full out. See how that works for you. So yeah, apparently that's Montana. I'll probably have a little bit more about it. Actually, I'll probably have a little bit more about it on Sunday, but I'm sure Greg will probably mention this. I don't know. We do same stories sometimes, but we have different, like, amounts of information to give for those. So, there's that. So, what?
Oh, just good little talk.
Yeah. So this one, let's. I guess why don't I watch this happen to this video live? Let's see here. Oh, okay. So so we're going to talk about the election.
Oh.
So the fact that I said that word will most likely throw a message on the bottom of this video, which is actually really helpful for your YouTube channel, surprisingly, which is kind of one of the reasons why I mention it. Okay. So, the election. There's a lot of steps that happen to becoming a president. Right now, we are right here. So essentially, you have the primaries, you have the national convention where they pick the candidates that are actually going to be on the ballot for that party. And then you have your general election, which is known as the popular vote, and it's the first Tuesday of November. So in this case, it was November 3rd. I think we all remember being there. So this year, though, Georgia and Pennsylvania had provisional extended voting. And those were like the biggest ones. There's other states that did have it as well, but that's essentially how that goes. So here's what happens next. So you have the general election, which is known as the popular vote. So that is kind of what we know now. So we know now that, you know, I don't know what the numbers were, not off the top of my head at least, but I do know what the numbers were.
290 to 214, I believe.
Yeah. So those numbers, the 290, 214, those are electoral votes. So depending on the population of a state, they have a different amount of electoral votes, essentially. And the people who do those votes are picked. Oh, actually, I'm jumping up ahead here. So Georgia and Pennsylvania had extended. It's a weird way of saying this. They had provisional extended ballots. So this is when ballots could come in. It was a specific day of postmarked, and it comes in. If it comes in after November 3rd, it's still legitimate. Well, that's where we're getting to. So this data that we see with the general election here is being seen by the Associated Press and Fox, and they're kind of like saying president-elect, blah, blah, blah. I think Fox is saying illegitimate elect or something. I don't fucking know. So they're the ones who are like, okay, it's Joe Biden. Technically, it is not yet. So we're at the tabulation phase right now. This is kind of where they vote, or this is where they count all the votes. And this is where the provisional ballots will be figured out. So if it is ever challenged, it is, or is going to be, if it's going to be challenged to see if they have the legal right to actually impose that said law. And that is a Supreme Court issue, so the Supreme Court has to jump in on type of something like that. But the provisional ballot type of a situation was from the state court, and then the Supreme Court would have to overturn the state's Supreme Court. Once that is figured out, and let's just put it this way, 9 times out of 10, it will most likely be ruled favorably that they are legitimate votes. Because there's really not much else that you could say there. The only question would be constitutional. And when it comes to a constitutional question like that, yes, the Supreme Court would kind of be the one to end ruling that, but it's kind of states have their own laws type of deal that can, and there might be some sort of case law that verifies that it can be also for elections as well. It's a matter of figuring out case law and seeing which case works better in that kind of a argument. So once that is all figured out, once the votes are tabulated, the Secretary of State will certify the results. So that hasn't happened yet. And after the certifications, all the states will go to each polling area, and they would pick electors. These electors are the ones that actually will go to the Electoral College, which is the House. Yeah, it goes to House. And they're the ones who say, okay, I have 3 votes. My state won. Trump, for instance, I'm giving 3 votes to Trump. This is kind of where that works. There is a very interesting documentary on HBO, but basically the reason why it's like that, back in forever ago, there wasn't that many people in the world, or in the country. So the translation of the amount of votes and everything like that going to the Electoral College, it's because, A, it's the states deciding who it is, who they are going to be voting for, but it's also just kind of cutting out the whole having to transmit to the federal government. You can't... It's a lot harder for the federal government to count 70 million votes one way than it is to count however many. There's 538. So they go to the locations and they pick electors. Those are usually the ones that are given from a list of electors from the parties. So the Republican Party has a list of electors. If the Republican Party won in that state, that's where they would get the people. Here's where it gets fucky. So most states have laws regarding casting a vote if you're an elector for the popular results of the state. So if Donald Trump won your state, like say you're North Dakota, if North Dakota won your state, then you have to vote for Donald Trump. The ones that do not follow that law, I think there's 2. I'm not 100% sure which one. But yeah, because I could have totally written that down. I should have. Anyway, so you have basically a law saying, hey, if you don't vote the way that your state did, you can either look at civil issues, so just a fine, or you could look at criminal issues as well. But there are cases where that happens, and in those situations, in those cases, the vote that person gave, that elector gave, does not go away. So if you say you want to be the Lone Ranger from North Dakota going for fucking Biden, for instance, when your state won Trump, you would face the consequences of voting for Biden, but that Biden vote does not go away. So once that move is done, there is no taking it back. So almost all the times they do vote for the candidate. Nebraska and Maine also kind of get a little bit more confusing. They're broken up by districts, so if a district goes red or goes blue, there's 1 vote there in whichever district. So Maine has right now 1 for Trump, 3 for Biden, and Nebraska has 1 for Biden and 4 for Trump. This is what happens in December. So from now till when this happens, I should probably know the date of when this happens, but I don't. So from now until when this happens is when all of the cases, like the legal challenges, have to be done. They have to be done in this window right now. As of this weekend, nothing yet, but more than likely, we will see some cases coming out tomorrow and throughout the week next week. So in this type of thing, you're wondering, well, what kind of challenges are there? There's a couple conspiracies. They each kind of have one view or another. Republicans see it as an illegitimate election. Dems obviously see it as a legitimate election. But, and here's where no one is blameless here. Throughout this entire time, and this happens in every election too, but throughout this entire time, both parties have been setting up groundwork, I guess, is what I would say, setting up that doubt. They've been challenging, they've been saying stuff, they've been both setting up that doubt specifically for something like this to happen. So basically, both parties, so remember when we had the USPS sorting machine issue and Amy Coney Barrett's appointment to Supreme Court? So during the Senate Judiciary hearings, she got asked this a lot too, almost every single time. They were questioning her if she would recuse herself from election questions, specifically because she's come in at such an early or at such a late point that she technically shouldn't even be in Supreme Court yet, because there's kind of a known thing of you never appoint a Supreme Court justice in the middle of an election year. So they were kind of for this exact reason. Yeah. So that's kind of what was known there. It was kind of, I think it was, I wouldn't recuse myself, but that's kind of what that's been going on. And Republican leaders also have been challenging state laws weeks before the election for the argument that it's too easy for people to cheat and cast ballots after the election. And in most cases, they were shot down immediately, but that's kind of, they've been putting the seeds into the ground. They've been watering it because they know that if they need it, they have this card, I guess, is what you would say. So these types of cases are extremely rare and, well, extremely improbable from actually being successful. So I'm not saying that Trump is going to steal the election. So I'm just saying this is what happens next. And this is why we're going to be seeing election coverage, even though the election was last week. I guess I can say it was last week. Either way, Tuesday. This is why we're still seeing that coverage, even past the AP calling it and MSNBC calling it. This is why we're going to continue seeing it, and we're still going to be seeing it till December. It might be a little bit less, but yeah.
I'm glad you have such an in-depth understanding of all of this. Because it's like we need people to just put it into normal people terms. We really do.
I don't know how great I've been doing with that, though, but
I think you've been doing all right.
I've been kind of doing a lot of reading. Because, yeah, like, when Trump was like, stop counting, stop the votes, blah, 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 that's what I've been, like, reading out, because I'm like, what is his actual end game here?
Yeah. Well, and what's the base for the claim? You know? Like, you have to have some sort of evidence to base your claim.
They have 3. And I'll get into them here in a minute. But, essentially, any of these challenges actually being successful, you would essentially have to suspend the thought of an actual democracy. Because if one of these is successful and it actually flips the election from Biden to Trump, after Biden won the popular vote and was certified and actually got 270 electoral votes, in 2016, Hillary Clinton did win, or did get the popular vote.
Yes, the electoral.
But not the electoral. And in this case, both the popular and the electoral was for Biden. And if a case came about, and it caused so many of these ballots to be invalidated, for it to switch to Trump. I'm not the one who likes to say civil war, but civil fucking war. Essentially, that is what's going to start that one. So it's extremely rare, and you would also have to envision a world where somebody won the popular vote and had the states, took states over, and still lost. Which I would say would, the actual act of it would be actually, I don't know, would it be a political coup? It would be a judicial coup? I don't know. It would be bad.
It would be bad juju for everybody, right?
Yes. Everybody would lose. Absolutely everybody. And the actual act of pulling through something like this, a lot of people, they do follow politics, and they do, like, there's people who vote Republican down the ticket or Democrat down the ticket, or people who register in a party and are totally all for a single party, and no matter what, they are gonna vote for it, who, like, completely drink all of the Kool-Aid, like the entire fucking bowl, and eat, sleep, and shit it. You would lose a lot of people for doing that. You would lose actually a lot of people for even trying it, because people are afraid of authoritarianism, and that would be something like that. So you might lose a couple more states for doing something like this. But here are the three arguments. I wish I had tinfoil. Get tinfoil ready. Alright. Right now, they could do a couple of things here. So, there are recounts going on in Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin. I'm not 100% sure about Wisconsin. Huh?
Said I'm not sure about Wisconsin either.
I should Google it. Yeah. So, there are recounts, I know, in Georgia and Pennsylvania. There are recounts in certain counties and stuff like that. There are different kind of arguments one can make. That basically you would invalidate the votes based on mail-in ballots or an error like signatures. You would basically attack the authenticity of the ballot. So you would say, this ballot came in late. Why did you count it? So, like, you would have to overthrow the provisional ballot rights. So the state Supreme Court ruled for instance, provisional extended ballots. So you would have to invalidate that argument, and then you can invalidate every single mail-in ballot that came in on after that day. So that would be your first plan of attack. There's also the invalidating of, like, the signature matching in certain states, or any kind of, if there was a provisional ballot based on, like, you weren't registered but you can vote that day. There's also more provisional ballots, like if you need to verify your ID or something like that, and you didn't have it on you at the time, you could have asked for a provisional ballot. North Dakota doesn't really do it. You just bring a utility bill. But yeah, so those are provisional. So it's basically, hey, this is my problem, I'd like to vote, and then you guys can figure out by adjudicating that ballot. And yes, that is literally what happens, where they bring it through and they actually like basically look at the ballots, figure out if this one's legitimate or that one isn't. So there was also the Bush versus Gore time, or the hanging Chad argument, where it's basically, you know, the ballot didn't fully show one way or another. The person made a mistake. I don't know if we still use punch ballots, but I'm pretty certain probably not anymore. But that was Bush v. Gore. Or basically arguing that provisional ballots are illegitimate, and you basically need to attack the actual argument of the reason for the provisional ballot.
So we were talking about Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
Says nevertheless, Trump campaign manager Bill Steppin, whatever, said the president plans to request a formal recount.
In Wisconsin.
Yeah.
There's
He's
also a
quoted.
possibility for Nevada, Arizona, Michigan, and North Carolina.
Yeah. Georgia's expected.
Yeah, because I think it was like 0.1% difference. Or maybe it grew a little bit further. I remember when it was like 49.4 to 49.4.
Yeah.
And that was when I was
Got
like,
that
there's
too.
100% going to be a recount in that.
Yep.
And that's the thing, too, is in a recount situation, that is your main way of actually changing the ballot or changing the actual outcome. Is you
To an
don't.
extent.
Yeah, but like.
Most of the time it's like marginal difference. And like,
Yeah.
I don't remember what state it was, but there was one where like Trump had a lead or whatever. They wanted a recount. They recounted it, and they found that Biden actually had the lead.
Yeah.
No.
Imagine that, yeah. But like that's what I'm saying is there's a chance that if you do it, it's not going to be very successful. But it would chip away at the legitimacy of the election. The main the actual point of challenging these things and challenging these ballots is actually not the outcome of like a recount or something like that. It's to basically illegitimize the actual election. Is saying, no, this isn't legitimate. Um, the end game is not like re-voting day type of thing. That's like never going to happen. But it's to pushing it over to the House. That's the end goal. Is to having the House of Representatives actually cast the ballots or cast their votes.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that would be really bad, and the fact that Trump's even attempting or thinking about actually trying that. In most cases, let me put it this way: in most elections, that's why you see people concede and have a concession speech and everything like that. So things like this do not have to continue carrying on. You would have your challenges say, you wanted a recount or whatever, but you wouldn't like continue it until it gets to like Supreme Court and actually, throwing out ballots and everything like that. It's almost never happens, and the concession is basically a formality of saying, I understand I lost. I'm going to be a fair loser here, and I'm going to allow the process to continue, and that's how this is going to go. Not conceding is why this is going to continue. So it's until he concedes the election, which is weird. There's talk that Melania and I think it was Don Jr. No, it wasn't Don Jr. It was
Eric.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Eric. Eric is Eric probably was like, you should concede the election at the beginning of the fucking election. But who's the one that's married to
Oh, I know you're talking about. Fuck.
that guy? They were both talking to him and being like, you should stop doing this. But then Rudy Giuliani, who is
very popular in the movie Borat.
Yeah.
Said what he said.
But yeah, he came out and said, I don't think that this is he's gonna do this. It's looking like we're doing this challenge. He was bitching about his lawyers yesterday, and looking for other lawyers. So yeah, his entire like legal team is probably split down the middle more than likely.
I'm surprised they haven't just openly bailed yet, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, they probably like the attention and also the money. That is almost a guaranteed paycheck no matter what happens. But yeah.
That's another thing that I'd really like to dig into one of these days. Is like, Trump was known as being like a multimillionaire or a billionaire or whatever the fuck, right? And then we come to find out that the guy is worth basically nothing himself, and it's mainly his business interests that really give him his worth.
Most people who are rich, they don't have like millions of dollars or billions of dollars in the bank. It's always assets. So they own like a ginormous house. But
I'm talking about like how so much of that has so much debt against it that I'm really curious, like how much he's actually worth when you factor in the debt that those assets have against them.
well, he's actually also hurting himself with the debt, specifically because the reason why his taxes, and this is his argument for the taxes that came out, the reason why is because the IRS is letting him take the losses from Taj Mahal and apply it to whatever year he wants. So he's just kind of sprinkling it in throughout every year. But yeah,
Guy's a fucking crook. God damn it.
I mean, taking your losses and lowering your or your tax liability is very common. But like anybody who trades, they always do that as well. But the reason why he takes the loss is the reason why. So he will evaluate his house or his property at a much lower value than it actually that he purchased it. So he has a loss there.
Mm-hmm.
So he's taking the losses that he got from Taj Mahal and banking that on top of the losses of this property and that property, and he's just banking tax credits. And that's pretty much his way of business, is banking tax credits. But
Isn't
yeah,
that incredible?
yeah, and that's the reason why we saw, the low the low amount of taxes that he has to pay. And that's the reason why we saw him pay taxes in China, I think, or in another country, because they don't have that kind of a law. So you purchase something for X amount of dollars, you're going to pay the taxes on that X amount of dollars, whether or not it's valued at that or not, because it's like sales tax or whatever their reasoning is. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I was just thinking about it. It's like if you balanced out the debt to his assets, like what is he actually worth?
he's
Very curious about that.
right. I think that's what people have been trying to do with like getting his taxes, is actually being able to see like what the actual net worth is.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's his game, is like playing that mysterious card or something like that. I don't know what people see in him, but like, yeah, it's weird. And that comes from a shitload of Trump documentaries. So, yeah. But the next thing that they could do is the Supreme Court could intervene in Pennsylvania and Georgia. So basically the question would be, did the state courts have the legal authority to extend the deadlines regarding the mail-in ballots? Again, testing the legitimacy of the ruling and the legitimacy of the mail-in ballots. I mean, it did also put a lot of stress on USPS, so I don't think there is a public number, and if there is, I'm sure it's very low. But I'm sure there was at least one situation where a ballot came in late. I don't know if there is that number released yet or not, but USPS did have a shitload of stress on it. The mail sorting machine thing, it stopped, but they never put him back. So damage was still done there.
Mm-hmm.
There was never an order to putting them back. There was an order for it to stop happening until after the election. So it's still going to happen. Because DeJoy, for instance, I forgot which company, but he basically has a controlling interest in two companies, two private shipping companies. So USPS dying would be a win for him no matter what. But the Supreme Court has been deadlocked on actually intervening in Pennsylvania, or in Pennsylvania and Georgia, but Pennsylvania has been proactively segregating the ballots that came in after the 3rd, in the event that that actually happens. And 2020 is a thing, so it never disappoints, so it could possibly happen. But the majority of mail-in ballots favored Biden, and that's the reason why that plan of attack would actually be feasible and actually possible to pull off. And again, you would basically have to suspend all belief in democracy to actually really go through with it. But most of the mail-in ballots favored Biden, specifically because Donald Trump told people not to fucking vote by mail, which I think honestly, I'm not they do politics shit, but I've never ran for office, or I don't know everything about running or anything like that, but I would imagine that was probably their Achilles heel there. Like, I understand the reason why they did it was for them to be able to do this type of attack, but I mean, another thing that they do is, or that they were doing, was they were saying stop counting in Arizona and continue counting in Pennsylvania or something like that. This was when one state was blue and one state was red, and they were fighting over it, and they were saying, if blue is losing, then stop counting, or then continue counting, and if red is winning, stop counting. That type of an argument obviously is gonna fall flat on his ass. But the sowing the seeds of distrust, essentially, for mail-in ballots may have been a net loss. Because, yeah, they were trying this type of a thing, but it's a little late.
Okay, I'm not trying to call anybody stupid here, but the absurdity of people hearing this man say, we want the mail-in ballots held until after the in-person voting. Okay, fair enough. Okay, everybody did that.
Right.
And then when we get to the part where we count the ballots, we were told to wait until after the election. Stop the fucking count. This is illegitimate. We're past the election day.
Yeah.
Like, the absurdity of that alone just makes my blood boil. And the fact that I heard thousands of people being little fucking parrots on his shoulder, just repeating the same thing.
There was a thing where, and somebody actually filmed this happening. I think it was Arizona, or maybe it was Georgia. There was a huge protest, rally, I don't know what you want to call it, super spreader event, that there was news trucks outside of a, what do they call the election offices? Man, I was watching this like a day ago, and I forgot the names.
I feel like we were thoroughly underprepared for this.
Yeah.
Like, we got way deeper into the actual elections than we thought we were going to.
Well, yeah,
Don't
whatever.
people.
I've been super interested. This has been literally my entire life for a week, so it was bound to happen. But, they were outside of a place where they were counting votes. I don't know what the technical term is. They were outside of a place where people were counting votes. First of all, there's the whole entire fact of, they didn't let me in. I signed up with Donald Trump to be an election watcher or whatever, and that's technically...
poll watcher?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
They named it differently, because I think an election, or like a poll watcher, is something that you have to fill out a registration with the state, but they wanted the Biden supporters, or the Trump supporters, to think that they had power or the ability to actually, like, show up in person and be there in person. But they used a different name, so it's not illegal type of thing. But I think you have to register with the actual city or the state or whatever the county level of that is to get like a permit type of thing. Because there was people that were like showing like an ID or something like that to like get in. But Donald Trump was running it himself on his website where you could sign up to be a poll watcher. But they named it different. And that's why we saw a whole bunch of people being all pissed off because there was way too many people, and when they were blocking it, I don't know what the technical reasoning for that was. I think maybe the window was broken or somebody broke the window or something, but I know there was like a legitimate reason for it. But there was a thing where a bunch of people outside were like sitting and doing poll watching or whatever the fuck they call it. And there was news trucks outside, and one of the people got into the office to do a interview with one of the counters. Fox News, by the way. Let me just make sure that's very clear. Fox News got in to do an interview, and, well, if you work in video production or anything like that, you need lights, you need cameras, you need one of these, like, I forgot what the name of it is. It's like a UV pack or something like that, where it's basically the satellite. Like, it's a wireless link to the truck that has the satellite type of thing to actually bounce the feed out. And equipment. They needed equipment. They needed to bring those equipments in. So they start carrying boxes into the election office. That's what they're called, election offices. They were carrying it into there. And somebody, I don't know who the fuck it was, Darwin Award winner, I hope, was like, they're carrying in ballots. Like, run after them or something and start this fucking huge drama. So they legitimately thought that because they weren't wearing like Fox News apparel or something, I don't know exactly what it was, but they legitimately thought that they had illegitimate ballots in a box, carrying them into the front of the office to get them counted, as if that's how that was working. And so one of the reporters, like, came up, ran up to him, was like, "Hey, I know you're not doing this because, like, you're a coworker type of thing. It wasn't, you're like, you were in the same industry, so I know who you are. Can you just show me what's in the back of your truck so I can, like, put it up on TikTok?" Or maybe it was Snapchat. I forgot what it was. The dude ran up.
TikTok.
Yeah, it was TikTok. And he was just like, "Hey, can you, like, just show me this?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And he just was like, "Yeah, this is my camera light. This is this thing. This is that thing. There you go." And he's like, "Well, there's the proof." So that was a thing that happened. But, yeah, so they essentially kind of shot themselves in the foot with that. But, yeah. I don't know how we got on that tangent, but...
It's all good. You actually had me searching for something.
All right. And then,
Oh, here we
so...
go.
I'll go ahead.
Okay. What's this? Philadelphia? Yeah,
Where
there's
was it?
a dispute.
Yeah.
Anyway, Trump lawyer went in there, and the judge asked them, "Are your observers in the counting room?" And the Trump campaign answered with, "There's a non-zero number of people in the room." The judge had to ask, "I'm asking you as a member of the bar of this court, are you representing are people representing Donald J. Trump for president representing the plaintiffs in that room?" The Trump campaign lawyer says yes, and the fucking judge says, "Then what's your problem?" After that, the lawyer said, "But there's another dimension to the issue," and the judge was being a smartass. He's like, "Time, space, width." Like, I just love, even the fucking legal system is tired of their shit.
Well, yeah. They were probably pretty tired too, because, like, I mean, sore loser type shit.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a thing that was leading up to, like, weeks ago, and continuing on. But another thing, and this is, I'll talk about the news organization here a little bit later, but there was a software glitch where apparently there was an update to voting machines. I believe it was in Michigan. Yep, it's Michigan. So there was an update for the voting machines a day before the election. Apparently they got a quote saying, "I've never seen that before. 2016 happened." But apparently there was a glitch where, and I'm not sure how this works, but a vote for Trump actually was in Biden's favor. So if a voter intended to vote for Trump, it would actually be tabulated as Biden. That happened for about 6,000 votes. So even if it did happen, he's not 6,000 votes behind. But it's still fucked up. Well, the Secretary of State of Michigan basically came out and he said that what happened was, it was human error. That the machine, or that software update, was actually the user interface, but the actual tabulation and counting and actually bringing in the data was done by another program. So the person who was working there, probably grandma, who was working there, had transmitted the numbers from that software and not from the tabulation script or whatever it's called. Um, so they basically didn't update the tabulation correctly. And yeah, so that was a thing. But the software doesn't count votes. And essentially, the Secretary of State was like, this is bullshit. But that is another argument that they have there. And if it's proven or if that is a reasoning for actually getting a recount, 28 to 33 states have that software. I think it was called Guardian or something like that.
That is a mortifying prospect.
But here's the thing, and this is where I kind of lose a little bit I don't have much credibility to it. It came from Breitbart. The news broke from Breitbart. Breitbart is a Tucker Carlson's news thing.
He has his own thing.
Yeah, white supremacist news organization is what basically you should call it. They peddle in conspiracy theories, much like New York Post. So yeah, it's basically kind of a grain of salt there, but that's another argument that they have. So long story short, it's extremely unlikely that any of these arguments stick. Kind of broke it upon. And obviously we don't really know anything now, but we should be able to see if any of these cases are something that his lawyer team actually wants to litigate, that actually believe that has a reasonable chance of actually being something litigatable. Is that technically a term? Arguable?
Litigious?
No, litigious is when somebody wants to sue all the time. I mean, that is him. But that basically... the funny thing is like they were talking... So Fox called Arizona before anybody did. Fox called Arizona for Biden. And that's when Fox News lost their one viewer, Donald Trump. And OANN got their viewer back. Thank God. But yeah, so they called for Trump, or for Biden, and CNN was kind of covering it a little bit. They were kind of being more snarky and not really actually like doing a story. They were just kind of being like, some news organization, we're not going to say anything, and then like 2 sentences later it was Fox. But they were talking about how I forgot what the actual problem was, but Don Lemon, apparently Donald Trump threatened Don Lemon with a suit, and he said that he was going to sue him until he lives with his mother. It was a thing. But okay. Yeah, apparently that's what he does, is he just sues people. Don Jr. is the one who owns he's a landlord or owns a bunch of properties that he rents out. And there's a lot of stories of this happening where they will get a lawsuit years down the road. They will get a lawsuit for unpaid rent or, you know, owing money for repairs on an apartment that they no longer have had for like 5 years. Just pointless lawsuits, to the point that there was like a mother that like actually lost her house because she lost the suit. She didn't know the suit was actually happening. She had a judgment against her, and they then went on and put a lien on her house. So that's the thing. They're a very litigious family, essentially. But, yeah. The downside here is this will not go away until December. There's all of these arguments, there's all of these things here, and they will not go away until December, because that is when the Electoral College thing happens. I don't know what the technical term is. The Electoral College system. Each elector... I don't know. I remember... Oh, definitions. Here we go. The votes... Elector... yeah, I don't know what the technical term is, but essentially, um, that's kind of how they figured that out. Now, if any of these things happen, again, extremely fucking rare, and I would probably say that if it does happen, I will, I don't know, do something stupid. That's how sure I am of this. I extremely doubt anything of this is actually going to happen, but if they are actually able to overturn the election and actually prove illegitimacy, again, not going to happen. But it would go to the House of Representatives. And when it comes to the House of Representatives, um, each person gets, I think each, it's not based on the, well, it technically is because that's how the representatives are elected, but it's less votes essentially. They don't need 270 in the House of Representatives. I think they need some other number. But yeah, essentially it would be the House of Representatives of this side, which again, I think a lot of people, knowing that that would be the outcome, I think a lot of people would lose a lot of respect for their favorite candidate and would probably never vote that party ever again because they were willing to actually go to that level. Then they're willing to continue going to that level no matter what. So, yeah, essentially that's the outcome there that they are wishing for. Which, by the way, even if it did happen, it would actually pretty much kill the party. Because that is a hard turn. Most people sit in the center. Some lean more from the center than anything, but they are usually not extreme. And something like this would be a very polarizing and extreme move for both parties. So it's usually not a good idea to even consider this, but this is something that this guy is going down with the ship. But another thing that may happen, and what I'm if I were to subscribe to this kind of a theory, what I think would happen was electors would abstain, and they might not get the 270. That would be kind of the worst case scenario. But the electors are picked, or, well, the list of electors are picked by the party of that state. The Secretary of State, I think, is the one that actually picks out of that list. But those people, when they make such a list, I'm sure they have a degree of certainty of trust towards that elector actually going for their way. But yeah, and then also I don't think people are willing to, put their financial well-being and their just life well-being in general over risking going to jail because their guy didn't win. But that's basically why we're going to hear about the election. The Electoral College will probably have a little bit of coverage on or anything like that, but yeah, that's essentially how it works. Another thing is this election, here's the one really good thing about this election. I mean, there's razor thin margins. A bunch of states flipped. A bunch of states flipped the other way. Whatever. The most amount of voters in any election in the entire history of America. It did have a lot of conspiracy theories and a lot of conspiracy-driven stuff, and that's kind of what we just went through. The entire presidency was an entire conspiracy theory. Q. And there's my views for the rest of the day. And it did get a lot of people involved. That's the thing.
One thing I was really happy to say, and it does tie directly into total turnout, was Joe Biden received more votes ever for any candidate like running for the presidency.
Yeah.
And the only person before him was Barack Obama for both times that he ran.
But I think the actual reasoning for that was voting essentially one of the biggest things that Democrats and Republicans have been fighting over when it comes to election is the ease of election, the
Hmm.
ease of actually being being a part of it. Republicans usually want to disenfranchise voters, and Democrats usually want to get as many as possible. It's a different view on life. One might be right to you, another thing might be right to another person. That's basically politics. But so when I say they're trying to discontinue or they're trying to like delegitimize voters and stuff like that, that's just their style of thinking. Because they think that person is bad, or there's different reasoning. It's not like they want to win by having the lowest amount of voters, but that is technically what they want at the end of the day. But it was the ease of voting, mail-in voting, the extension of the ballots, the trust in the ballots, and the issues regarding the actual election. I think was probably one of the last things that actually got it. But because that's another thing, this entire election, all the debates and everything like that, 80 to 90% of it was, what are you going to do about COVID? Just kind of not a great thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be life after COVID, and we still have him as a president after COVID.
Yep.
But
You know what? Actually, before we go, just
Mm.
to touch on that, worst fucking experience of my life,
What?
COVID.
Oh,
This is fucking miserable.
I can imagine.
And like, I'm not trying to sound like an asshole when I say this, but I may hit the next person that says to me anything along the lines of, "Well, hey, you got a vacation, or
It's
you
just
got
the
a
flu,
couple
bro.
weeks."
It's just the
This is
flu.
worse than any flu I've
Yeah, I can
ever had.
imagine.
It's so bad, and I was telling you before we got started on this, I haven't been able to taste or smell anything since yesterday evening.
I heard that it's basically like pneumonia as far as the lung aspect of it,
Hmm.
and then flu of everything else, but it's like you have an extremely bad head cold on top of it.
Yeah, like take all that shit, ball it into one,
Yeah,
and then cram it into a small human being.
yeah.
It's like, yeah, I mean, I could run you through the timeline of this, but
Like,
just fucking miserable. And like both Beth and I, the last 2 days we woke up and we felt all right
yeah,
ish throughout the day. And then when it gets into evening, like my wife is laying next to me on the floor right now.
right, yeah.
And when we started this, I obviously didn't sound this bad.
Well, I can
So,
imagine it's because like when you're laying down, like the fluid just kind of.
no, we're talking just like as the day progresses, once
Oh
you
yeah,
get past the evening, it's just like off a cliff. So
Jesus.
I felt okay most of the day. And I guarantee you, by the time we're even hanging this up, I'm probably going to start having chills again. I lost my voice last night for a while.
Do they give you? I know when it first was going on, they used to give you like a O2 reader thing that you'd put on your finger, and you'd have to like test twice a day or something.
No,
They don't do that.
no. Well, and keep in mind, I'm really fortunate where I work. We got those rapid tests, the
Yeah,
Gen X or whatever the fuck.
yeah,
So every day at 1, I think it was, for like an hour, basically, any employees, if you're exhibiting symptoms or whatever, you just fill out a form on our intranet,
nice.
and then they call you up and they say, okay, about this time, make sure you're there. They have like one part of our ambulance garage, one
Yeah.
of the doors, they have the COVID line running through.
Uh, you're kind of
And
lucky that you got off though. Like for me, if that happened to me, since I work from home, they'd just be like, "Fuck it,
yeah,
get on
right.
the phone."
And that's the thing is
I just
like,
hope for me losing my voice. That's what I really need to have happen. If I get COVID, I would like to lose my voice.
and that's what I'm saying is like, what you just said. It's like by halfway through day one, not worth it. I
Oh yeah,
would work my fucking back to pieces
I can imagine that.
before this. This is fucking awful. So any of you who see this that are thinking, oh, it's just a flu or whatever,
Yeah,
I'm 31 years old. I'm incredibly good shape. I'm in very good health, and I could die. Literally, I could die, but I feel like I would rather right now.
that's another thing that's what I'm mostly afraid of because I smoke. So
Mm.
like, and I do wake up with like the chest thing. like with your lungs where you need like a cigarette, or else you're gonna be coughing up a lung. I can only imagine. Add COVID on top of that, that would just be all bad.
Yeah.
But
So, shit show and a half. Appreciate it if you guys took some precautions. Wear a mask, wash your hands,
yes,
stay away when you can, whatever.
right, yeah.
Not saying you have to give up your life, but just be smart about it. This is not worth any of it. I'm telling you.
But that's all we have.
Yeah.
I can't believe, because I honestly, I went into this, I'm like, okay, hour tops, that's easy. Got an hour and a half in. It's kind of
Yeah.
nice.
And
But,
if I die, I'll let you guys know. Okay.
well, I get your shit too, so whatever.
Yeah. So it's just that we have witnesses here. My wife was like, "Why does Phil get the server if you die?" I'm like,
'Cause I don't know. I do something with it.
what? You get everything else.
Right?
You
You guys have a house.
But yeah. So Phil gets the server. She'll have to deal.
Right. But yeah, that's all we have. If you guys like this video, make sure to share it. Also check us out on YouTube, which is where you're watching this. I need to like change that script. Check us out on Facebook. We actually have a Facebook page. Not the one that you're thinking. It's the Canna-Talk ND with Wilson Facebook page. Not the other one, but that other one is also still run by, well, not me. Let's just put it that way, but it's still run by them. So yeah, check us out on Facebook, Canna-Talk ND. If you like this show and want more, make sure to check out Canna-Talk with Wilson on 95.9 Radio Free Fargo every Thursday from 4 to 5 p.m. I love how I just get my radio voice in here. And if you're in the Fargo-Moorhead area, you can listen on that channel, but you can also listen online at radiofreefargo.org. We are also on every single podcasting platform in the entire fucking world. Check out the description down below for that. Make sure to hit the like button. And if you're not subscribed, subscribe today. Other than that, this has been Canna-heads. So you'll see you guys next week. I keep doing this mistake every fucking time. That's fine though. Make sure to check us out next Sunday at 7:30 p.m. And yeah, we will see you guys later.